team were smart. In the 1870s, they quickly designed a flag, wrote a constitution, made themselves look like a nation, which is why the only Pacific island that retained its independence was Tonga. Today, this island has come up with another ingenious idea, one that could bring in millions, perhaps billions of dollars. When prime time could...
At first, it sounded like a joke. Tonga putting satellites in space? Hey, this is a country where there are just 4,000 phones, only 5,000 radios. So when they started talking about it at the local tavern, you can just imagine.
I didn't believe it when I read it. I thought, this is another one of those stories we keep getting.
But it's true. Tonga, where the tallest building is 4 stories high, where they decorate the graves with beer bottles, where the duty-free shop has its own beauty queen. Tiny Tonga may be the next big name in space technology. So by now, you're probably asking what all Americans ask when a Tongan comes calling.
Let's say, where are you from? With my accent, of course, it was difficult. And I said, well, I'm from Tonga. And every one of them, without fail, would say, where the hell is Tonga?
Good question. On a map, you start at Hawaii and trace a line down to Tahiti. Hang a hard left and, whoops, too far, that's Fiji. Back up a bit and there's Tonga, that small spot right there. Small? Did we say small? Listen, you could take every person in Tonga, put them in the Rose Bowl, and still have a few seats left over. There are only 100,000 of them. Their homeland is a string of 172 islands. If you put them together, they'd be less than half the size of Rhode Island. Yes, by Western standards, Tonga is a mere crumb on the great lunch plate of life. When you first came here, do people have any idea where Tonga was?
Well, I mean, most of my friends say, good heavens, what do you want in Africa?
No, that's Togo. This is Tonga. Just west of the international date line, it's the first country in the world to greet the new day. So it's known as the land where time begins. See, says so right on the room keys at Tonga's biggest hotel. Thing is, once time begins, nothing much happens.
We are not sort of forced by the time. You know, even say I'm supposed to be at work at 8:30. I'll be there by 9.
Or 10, or noon. There's no rush hour here, no rat race. It's called Waka Tonga, the Tongan way. This is typical Waka Tonga, a community feast we visited.
Poor people, they can come and eat here with nothing.
Really?
Why?
Well, in America...
I know money. You got to say money talks. Well, money does not talk here.
In fact, it doesn't even whisper. In Tonga, the average wage is just $2,000 a year. But medical care is free, education is free, crime is almost non-existent. Don't you worry about success and money and...
Oh, why should we? Don't you never be success? Anything. We've just got enough.
What they've got is an economy that depends on fish, fruit, and foreign aid. A lot of foreign aid, mostly from Australia and New Zealand. In fact, Tonga's gross national product is only $70 million, about $20 million less than it cost to film Terminator 2. But soon, there may be a whole new way to subsidize paradise. Soon, Tonga may be a satellite empire, instead of just a plain old kingdom.
We're one of the oldest kingdoms, I think, surviving kingdoms in the world.
Today, the man who owns the throne is Tulu IV. That's him. Stepping out of the Royal Winnebago. Tulu isn't the richest or most powerful king, but he is the fattest. Says so in the Guinness Book of World Records, which lists him as the world's heaviest monarch at 308 pounds. But lately, His Majesty's been on a diet.
I don't mean to pry, but how much weight have you lost?
Oh, about 30 pounds.
300 pounds, did you say?
So I have heavy bones. Heavy bone structure. But I'm not fat, but I have heavy bone structure.
How did you do it?
Well, I just exercise every day.
and not eating too many hamburgers.
He may no longer be a Burger King, but his diet is high in saturated fats. These fruit bats, or flying foxes, are one of Tonga's biggest tourist attractions. They're not only creepy, they're edible.
I like them roasted.
How's it taste?
Very good. Very tasty. Raw like little bit, but it is good.
Thanks, we'll stick to slim fats. Anyway, it's not just diet that's reduced the royal waistline. Several days a week, the king rides his bike, a step up onto the ultra-regal yakskin seat, and he's off. Tongan soldiers provide escort, and every time he completes a lap, 15 laps, and after the last, impressed? There's more. He also likes power walking up and down the steep hills behind his palace. It's quite a sight. The king and his entourage, followed by the bearer of the royal chair. But in Tonga, the true sport of kings is canoe racing. Tongans just love a good canoe race, but this particular race was special, the kickoff to a week-long celebration of the king's 73rd birthday. At the royal palace, tribal chiefs came bearing gifts like big pigs, those things that look like logs. They're really giant Tongan yams. But what Tupu really wants, he's already got. Good reception on the royal TV. He owes that to the big dish in back of his palace, and he owes that to Matt Nilsson. Nilsson was an executive in the satellite business based in Washington until 1987 when he moved to Tonga. Later, some would wonder if he came here intending to talk the king into a satellite deal. Nilsson claims he just wanted to enjoy the sun and surf. One way or the other, it wasn't long before he was at the palace.
So His Majesty called me into an audience, and he basically asked me the question of how can we improve communications for Tonga.
He wanted better phone service.
No, he wanted better television for the islands.
But why stop there, asked Nilsson. He had a bold plan, and the king was only too eager to listen. Why not join the major power, launch a fleet of communication satellites, put a lot more satellite power up over the Pacific than Tonga would ever need, and sell the extra capacity to other countries? They would call the venture Tonga Sat.
So that we catch the Pacific Rim with that satellite. Tonga is practically right underneath it.
But the real beauty of Nilsson's scheme was that it would lock up all the best satellite spaces left over the Pacific. So Tonga would become a major player in the fastest growing, most profitable satellite region in the world, stretching from Asia to America and all points in between.
Actually, if you want to be quite truthful, we can serve about 4 billion people of the world's population with the system.
Come on now. I mean, you pulled a fast one on a galactic scale.
But a perfectly legitimate and legal one.
That's true, but Nilsson's scheme flies in the face of a gentleman's agreement among the nations of the world to claim only enough satellite space for their own needs.
Illegal? No, probably not. Is it against what everyone's understanding is? Yes.
Fred Landman heads Pan Am Sat, a competing satellite company. He's one of many in the industry who thinks Nilsson is using Tonga as a front, since by law, Nilsson as an individual can't lay claim to orbital space, but Tonga as a sovereign nation can. Scott Chase is a reporter who covers the satellite industry.
The Kingdom of Tonga did not originate this idea. Matt Nilsson originated this idea and shopped around for where he could best sell it, where he could find a cogent but somewhat docile, intelligent but not too questioning sponsor for this sort of arrangement.
It would hardly be the first time His Majesty showed a fondness for unlikely ways to raise cash for the kingdom. For instance, there was a plan to turn one of Tonga's islands into a dump site for toxic waste from America. Environmentalists were horrified. The idea was dropped. And there was a plan to import 30 million used tires from Washington State. Tires were a pollution problem there. The king said the state would pay to send them here, well, you just burn them and use them for energy production. That was nothing compared to an idea that the king had before that. He wanted to build an oil refinery on an active volcano. As the king's chief deputy, Sione Kite has overseen many of these dubious ventures.
Some of them have not been, rewarding, but we have learned the hard way, and we must go on. Life must carry on.
They all sound like get-rich-quick schemes. What's going on here?
Well, certainly there's no harm in being wealthy.
If this thing takes off, you are going to have a fistful of loot eventually.
In about another 5 to 6 to 7 years, yes.
Yes, if the plans they're working on now become a reality, Tonga Sat could turn a profit of $60 million a year, and Nielsen owns 20%. You do the math. But before anyone starts counting the cash, they actually have to launch some satellites.
For Tonga itself, to put up a satellite system would require hundreds of millions of dollars. Can Tonga raise that kind of money? It's a very unlikely scenario. But the fact that it's coming true just proves once again that truth is stranger than fiction.
We thought about that as we took a farewell stroll with His Majesty. And we thought, if he wants us to believe Tonga will be up there in space with the big boys, well, why not? After all, every time the king eats a bat, he proves it's possible to swallow anything.